Here's the claim, and I want it on the table in the first 30 seconds because I think the show has been telling us this the whole time and we filed it under bad luck. From is not a story about unlucky travelers who took a wrong turn. The town does not catch whoever happens to drive down the wrong road. It goes looking for specific people, and it brings them in on purpose. Abduction is random. This is recruitment. And once you stop seeing the residents as victims and start reading them as hires, as a crew assembled skill by skill, the whole show reorganizes. The professions you thought were just character backstory turn out to be a staffing sheet. The town didn't trap an architect, a software engineer, a soldier, a doctor, and a grower by coincidence. It hired them. The only real question, the one this whole video is chasing, is what it hired them for. Let me show you, because the show already did the hard part for me. We are past the point of arguing whether the town chooses people. The show settled it. Season 3 confirmed that the Matthews family didn't stumble in. Tabitha was drawn here. The show frames her selection around her specific wound, a mother who lost a child and is desperate to save other children, and it tells us, through Victor's family, that Tabitha and Miranda before her are not the first to be chosen for that. There's a line of chosen people, reincarnated and brought back to take the same job over and over. So lock that in because it's the foundation under everything else. Arrival in Fromville is not chance. The town selects. That's not my theory, that's canon. Which means the interesting question was never does it pick people, it's what does it pick for? And the show answers that too, if you stop looking at the souls and start looking at the resumes. Rewatch the first stretch of the series with one thing in mind, and you can't unsee it. The show introduces almost every adult by their job, fast, on purpose, and the job always turns out to be exactly what this place needs. What with Jade, introduced early as the restless, wealthy software guy who can't leave a puzzle alone, which is the exact wiring you'd want in the person who later cracks the symbol, the numbers, and the bottle tree song. Two of the most important residents are established in their very first scenes as the precise specialists the town's central mystery is going to require. That's not how you write coincidence, that's how you write casting. Hold that image, the right specialist arriving precisely when the town needs that specialty, because we're going to see it again and again, and the repetition is the whole point. So let's read the staffing sheet, because once you see the org chart, you can't look at this show the same way. The town's deepest mystery is a thing that was built, and she's the one who can think in blueprints, foundations, load-bearing walls. Her visions keep pulling her toward the tower and the design of the place. That's not a hobby the writers gave her, it's the job. Jade, the analyst, a software developer, a man whose literal profession is finding the logic in a system and decoding it. And what does Jade do every season? He decodes the symbol, the numbers, the tunnels, the messages in the bottles that turn out to be a musical scale. Drop a wealthy software guy with a pattern-obsessed brain into a town that is one giant encrypted message, and of course he becomes the one cracking it. The town needed a code breaker. It hired one. Boyd, the sheriff, a retired army veteran, 2 tours, and the man who becomes the law of this place almost on arrival. A town full of terrified people who have to be organized, defended, and led into impossible decisions needs exactly one thing first: someone trained to hold a line and make the call nobody else can stomach. The town needed order and the will to do the hard thing. It hired a soldier, Christy and Marielle, medical, a doctor and the clinic beside her. A place that runs experiments on its own residents, that needs autopsies on the creatures, monitoring of the changes happening inside people like Fatima, needs a working medical bay. Christy cutting Smiley open and discovering it's human inside isn't a side plot, that's R&D. The town staffed a lab. Fatima, the grower, the one the town keeps tying to living, growing things, the crops, the garden, and then the big one. It used her body to grow the reborn creature, and her hands to build the golem. In a place whose entire power is rooted, literally, in a tree grown from the children, you need someone bound to the biology of the thing. The town didn't waste her, it assigned her to the roots. Father Khatri, the priest, because whatever this place is, it is not only physical, it runs on ritual, sacrifice, belief, the dead who won't leave. A project like that needs someone who works the spiritual layer, and the town brought in a priest, kept him central, and even keeps him present after death as a voice in Boyd's ear. Victor, the keeper, the archivist. The one who has survived long enough to hold the institutional memory, the drawings, the fragments, the rules, and hand them to the next crew when they're finally ready to read them. Every long project needs someone who remembers how the last attempt failed. That's Victor. Donna, operations. Less flashy, just as necessary. She runs Colony House, the housing, the supplies, the order among the second settlement, keeping a traumatized population fed and functional while the specialists do the work. Every project needs someone to keep the lights on. That's Donna. Ethan, the apprentice. And here's the tell that this is an ongoing operation and not a one-time accident. The town is already training its next generation. Victor spent this whole season teaching Ethan to survive alone, telling him to be prepared, handing him the dolls and the rules, exactly how an old hand trains a replacement before he ages out. Ethan even reads the place as a quest before any adult does, because the apprentice is being onboarded young.
That is on a magical quest, and if I try...
A crew that grooms a successor isn't a group of victims, it's an institution. Now the obvious objection, most people who arrive don't get a title, they just die. True, the town casts a wider net than its core crew, but look at who lasts. The specialists get kept, protected, promoted, Kenny pulled up into deputy, the useful folded into the work, while the unskilled tend to become the body count that keeps everyone else frightened and compliant. That's not a hole in the theory, that's how every operation on Earth runs, a small retained crew, and a lot of overhead. Read that list back as a single hire and tell me it sounds like bad luck. Structure, code, security, medicine, biology, ritual, memory. That is not a random sample of roadside travelers. That is a team, the exact team you would assemble if you had one enormous, ancient, broken thing to understand and operate. The town didn't catch these people. It recruited them. I'll be straight about the one place I step past what's confirmed, because that's the deal on this channel. Canon is that the town chooses people, that's established, especially for the rescuer souls like Tabitha. What I'm adding is that it chooses for skills, that the professions aren't a coincidence, they're a job roster. That's my inference, and the fair objection is confirmation bias. A big enough cast will always contain a doctor and a cop. My answer is the completeness. It's not that there's a doctor, it's that there's a doctor, an architect, a codebreaker, a grower bound to the tree, a priest, a soldier, and a keeper. Every role a project like this would require, and almost no dead weight in the core. When the roster is that complete, coincidence is doing more work than recruitment. And the show already handed me the hard half. Selection is real. I'm just reading the hiring criteria off the people it selected. Here's where it turns, because it forces a question nobody asks. Why does a place need a crew? You don't staff a prison with an architect, a botanist, a code breaker, and a priest. You staff a prison with guards. A skill roster like this only gets assembled for one of two reasons, and the whole tone of the ending depends on which one it is. And the show feeds both readings on purpose. For repair, the place keeps nudging people toward fixing something. The bones, the tree, the symbol, almost like it wants to be solved. For harvest, every crew that has ever gotten close ended up dead, drained, and replaced, which is exactly what you'd see if getting close was the point and the people were the consumable. The cruelest possibility is that there's no difference, that fixing the town and feeding it are the same act, and every breakthrough the crew delivers is also the meal. The first reading is repair, the town is broken, a cage with a flaw, a ritual left unfinished, a system that's failing, and it keeps pulling in specialists to fix it. The architect to understand the structure, the analyst to decode the lock, the grower to tend the tree, the priest to finish the rite. Under this reading, the residents are a maintenance crew, the building summoned because it's falling apart, and escape is really the town trying to get itself repaired through them. The second reading is harvest. The crew isn't here to fix anything, it's here to be used. The town has a problem it can't solve alone, so it brings in the minds that can, lets them get close to the answer, and takes what it needs from the attempt. Under this reading, the residents are contractors on a job that ends with them, hired for one deliverable and discarded after, which is exactly what the cycle has looked like for generations. Either way, the reframe holds, and it's the part one most want you to sit with. These people are not trapped by accident, they are employed, and nobody gets to quit. If people are being recruited, somebody is doing the recruiting, and the show has a candidate sitting in plain sight, the man in yellow. Strip the horror staging off him and look at what he actually does. He doesn't usually kill the people who matter. He makes offers. He's the one who deals immortality to the founders, a way home to the desperate, a quiet bargain to whoever's weak enough to take it. He's not a slasher, he's a closer. In fairy tale terms, he's the trickster. In the frame we're using, he's something more mundane and more chilling. He's the recruiter. He finds the person with exactly the wound or the skill the town needs, shows up wearing a face they'll trust, and gets them to agree before they understand the terms. And every job here comes with a price, never a salary. The show told us in plain text that you don't get anything for free. The other half of the desk is the boy in white, the one who places people, who points the chosen toward their task and tells them what they're for. One side works by temptation, the other by guidance, and between them, every important person in this town gets brought in and assigned. The founder's bargain, immortality, exactly as requested, wasn't a one-off horror. It was the first hire. Everything since has been the same desk, still open, still taking applications. It writes itself. And here's the proof that the recruitment is real and intentional. Sitting in the most confirmed lore the show has, the rescuer. Tabitha is Miranda, Jade is Christopher. The one couple who refused to sacrifice their children, reincarnated and brought back, lifetime after lifetime, to attempt the one job that actually matters. The town doesn't just hire living specialists off the highway, it rehires the same two souls across centuries because they're the only ones qualified for the role at the center of everything. The reincarnation isn't a mystery box, it's a restaffing. The most important position in town has been held by the same two people, contract renewed, life after life, whether they remember signing or not. And that reframes the children's word one final way. Ankui, remember, we've read it as a plea, read it as an onboarding instruction instead. Remember what you are here to do. Remember the job. If this is right, it predicts things, so here's where it pays out. The falsifiable one, people die when the job is done. If residents are hires, then the town has no reason to keep one alive past their usefulness. So watch the timing of the deaths. A character should die right after they deliver the thing the town needed from them, not randomly. Their breakthrough should be their last act. Anyone who's lived a suspiciously long time without an obvious purpose has a purpose you haven't been shown. Victor looked like a broken hermit for 2 seasons. He was the archivist the whole time. Expect at least one more why is this person still alive character to snap into a role late. The recruiter shows his hand. If the man in yellow is the one bringing people in, watch for a moment where he reveals he knew a resident before they ever arrived, that he chose them. He's already edged toward it with Tabitha at the RV, expected to get explicit before the end, not welcome to town, but I've been waiting for you. I'll be honest about the edge of this, because the show's still running and I'd rather flag the unknown than fake the last page. I don't know if it's repair or harvest. I don't know if the town is a wounded thing trying to heal itself through the people it drags in, or a patient machine that hires brilliant minds, drains the work out of them, and renews the contract with their next life. I think it might honestly be both, a broken thing that survives by consuming the very people it summoned to fix it. But here's what I'm sure of and what the show has never once stopped implying. Nobody here arrived by accident. The road didn't pick them, the town did. The architect, the analyst, the soldier, the doctor, the grower, the priest, the keeper, and the 2 rescuer souls it keeps calling back from the dead. Every one of them got a letter that just happened to look like a wrong turn. So the next time a character says, "Why am I here?" don't hear it as despair. Hear it as the most dangerous question in the show. Because in Fromville, you weren't trapped, you were hired. And the job isn't finished.